They say that love is pure and generous. It's not small and selfish. The only people who don't look back with regret are idiots and psychopaths. And I got a lifetime of regrets, boy. Why? Why? I mean, what kind of God? What kind of world? It's a stinking con game. You grew up being told, wait for the sweets and the roses. Then they hit you with a pickaxe in the ear. Grief. They say you pass through it. Bull. They say, don't get angry. Oh, let it go. It's killing you. I say, that. Anger's the only thing they left me. I love you. That's my rock bottom. That's my immutable. My damn the naked soul. I was wrong. I hope you can forgive me.
Oh my goodness. Seriously. I have to just do it. It's like I can tell myself, I don't have to think about that.
I was designed to do those things. How the hell does this guy know this about me?
It's impossible to not see.
When Dan read for my sister, she was like, psychic. How did you know that? She's like, it's human design, guys. Like, it's a testimony of how legit it is.
Seriously, Dan was like FBI or CIA. Like, how the hell does this guy know this about me?
Having my chart read, they were just seeing after seeing. And I was just like, wow, that's me.
This man is reading and I've never met him before.
I was one of the biggest emotional waves I've ever been in my life, and he saved my life.
It seems like everybody has the same reaction, that aha moment, and they want to find out more. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Human Design Advantage podcast. My name is Jen, and decoding the matrix for us is Danny Goober.
Jennifer, it's so good to see you. Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. Today is December 7th, 2022. And we skipped last week. We kind of took a week off. So we're diving right back into this week with the design of Robin Williams. And I know you're super excited to be diving into this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Robin's got he had a lot of stuff going on. That was a powerful video we just watched.
Yes, yeah. It was.
They've shown a few other words of his, and they were basically that. So something deep down was going on. And with all that with what we just saw, we'll have something to analyze here.
Absolutely. Yeah. So before we dive into Robin Williams tonight, you guys who are watching, please make sure you like, subscribe, and follow the show. If you find this information informative, please make sure to share it out, tag us, let us know if you have any questions. We do have a special guest, one of Dan's students and one of our Vortex members, Nikki, is going to be joining us. Hi, Nikki.
Hello.
Awesome. Hey, Nikki.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yep. So
welcome to. Huh?
So glad you're here.
Yes. I'm super glad that you're here. I can't wait to see what information you bring to the table because I love our conversations behind the scenes.
Thank you. I'm really excited.
So, yeah. Well, with that said, you guys, I'm going to pass it over to Dan. Let you start because you've been kind of analyzing Mr. Williams for
a little while. Yeah, it's been a couple of weeks now. I've been wanting to do Robin Williams. So when I first saw that video a month ago, it really caught me by surprise. I looked at a few other things, and I just started to sort of call out what is going on in this man. And so when I finally got to his chart and his time, it seemed to me such a valuable lesson we can give the world to just sort of analyze what goes on. What goes on now, whether he took his own life or it was sort of forced upon him, I don't know, because I've watched a bunch of stuff and there's questions as it relates to that in my mind. You know, there's a story we're told and then there's what really happened. So whatever it was, the pain and the grief behind it all was striking.
I didn't, well, we had our conversation off screen about as soon as I started researching, how did he die? You know, it's similar to a lot of the stars. So if you guys really just start to follow the patterns and investigate what they were doing prior to them committing suicide, I want to air quote that.
You know,
Sometimes
people get
yes,
pushed somehow.
it definitely pushed. It happens too much, too often in Hollywood, especially. That's been going on since ages. I mean, Judy Garland, Marilyn Monroe, all of them. They've all been put in a container that they are exposed to certain things. That when I saw the video that we just aired, I was like, this is someone who was really pushed into something. Like, there's anger behind all of that, lots of anger, and there's hidden messages within what he said. So
indeed, let's pull this chart up and take a look at some of the things that have been going on. So happy Wednesday night, celebrity night, everybody. Here's Robin Williams. To many of us, he was Mork and Mindy. You know what I mean? Nanu.
I remember Mork and Mindy.
Yeah, that was when he first hit the scene. And I know he had problems up and down. So there was plenty of stuff about him, you know, being deep down in a well, being, you know, way up high. And he was intoxicating in his own way. The first thing I see in this chart is I see a transitional profile, a 2-5. So those are rare. That means unconsciously he attracted society. Consciously he wanted to be a hermit in society. You know, think about that. On one side, he delivers on stage. You know, he was the captain of his stage. Everywhere he went, he was the captain of the scene. He was, you know, King Robin of the scene without trying to steal it. The modesty of the hermit. The name of the second line in the I Ching is called modesty. It's just modesty. The behavioral, it's called modesty. And so, you know, and so then on the other side, you know, he's just a hermit. He wanted to not necessarily, you know, whatever, be all of that. And subsequently, he was a natural at what he did. So what we're seeing is a natural that could naturally basically give the display of what was needed on the set. But behind the scenes, people undoubtedly saw in him things that weren't there. Behind the scenes, that fifth line was undoubtedly projected upon to be different and or more than what it really was.
I don't think we've done a 2-5 profile.
I don't think so either. As I recall,
I saw that 5. I was wondering, since I'm a 5-1, how the projection is different on the other side.
Well, so let's look at one of the things that drove this man. We've got his definition, we've got his openness. So in the conditioning of his life, Robin Williams was probably a little older than I am. So, you know, his parents didn't know for sure. Nobody knew. And so he would have been raised with all that mental pressure to come up with the formula to stop being oppressed with the confusion pressure that would have poured in on him, with trying to know and having noise in his head constantly, gate 24, coming back over and over again, unconsciously, messages that tormented. If there were messages that tormented him, they came back over and over in an intermittent fashion. So throughout his whole life, it'd be like this stuff keeps coming back. If it were in a defined center, it'd be coming back over and over daily. But in an undefined center, it would plague him over time because intermittently it's there.
I saw that what his cross was, right angle. I could only imagine, especially like, you know, serving out karma, the stuff coming back over and over and over.
Well, right. As a right angle cross, a 2-5 is a right angle cross. So here's this man always looking inward. You know what I mean? More self-absorbed. The transpersonal skills aren't quite there yet. He's thrown into his transpersonal world as a hermit. So sooner or later, people would have gotten a hold of him off the throat center. He was naturally enthusiastic. So as soon as he was in a public aura doing any kind of acting, this was hooked up. And bam, he's wildly enthusiastic. It's in an open throat. So he's intoxicatingly enthusiastic. That describes the first character we all remember as Mork of Mork and Mindy. I mean, wildly enthusiastic. He was just off the charts enthusiastic. And
yes.
And so this 56-2 and the 62, I'll read those out in a little bit. But so open throat always wants to attract attention. And so every set he was on, every time you saw him, you know, he was either a hermit or trying to attract attention. That happened all the time. Never certain what move he should make. So anything that would have happened to him as a surrounding his death, it would have been easy to put all kinds of different certainties that weren't him in him to affect him, to persuade him, and or to put him right into a spot where his uncertainty, because listen, there's 3 open gates on that ajna center and a totally open head center. That's a lot of not self-pressure, thinking about not knowing what to think. Never mind just thinking about things that don't matter. It's just a lot of not self-pressure on that head. And then suddenly he can't be certain about anything. And the only certainty under pressure he could really give himself when he wasn't sure what the attention was, and he wasn't sure where his love and direction was supposed to take him, when he wasn't sure where his gate 25's innocence really meant, as he felt himself become more and more insignificant into not knowing what to say to people, not knowing what to struggle for, not knowing what tomorrow would bring. I'm keynoting these gates that are hanging there either on open centers or not knowing what to return to. It's you put it all together, and it would have been easy to steer, not easy, but I could see how he could have been cajoled, influenced, pushed into, it's entirely possible he was pushed into taking his life, or if he didn't and he took his own life, I can see why, just from the torture of all of this, because he was mad as hell about the love that wasn't there and the love that was all bullshit, except the love at the end, where that was his rock bottom, exactly the opposite of BS. At the end, the love he described was the pinnacle of what God would have asked of all of us, just in that one statement. So that was my take on that's my take on some of this so far. Anyone want to say anything?
Nikki?
Yeah, I mean, I guess from a different perspective, I could see how much inspiration would come through that fully open head center, and how much limitation, like he could feel with just having this spark and knowing what's there, and then thinking of every time there's a transit for the cross of the sleeping phoenix, it would give him definition through the 59-6 and the 39-55, and then in the now with all of that intuitive feeling. And I know Ra had mentioned that if there's going to be any individuals that are not Rave that will be able to actually communicate with Rave, it will be the cross of laws. And so I was kind of super shocked, but not shocked, to see just the 5-2, and then just to feel so deeply. Like, can you imagine, like, Patch Adams, a Robin Williams here, like when the Rave are born, to take care of all these little babies, and who knows what they're going to be like, but to have that kind of a spirit just shining on such an unfamiliar situation. So much of that kind of came to me. So,
I'm
and
glad
it's
you pointed
in gate 7. So
I'm glad you pointed out the inspiration that would have come through. He would have been open to his open head center, would have been open to all the possible inspiration. So again, every set, every time a transit came along that connected it, especially, but every set mostly, and wherever his family was
around.
Yeah, he would have been feeling everybody's projection onto him to be great, and everyone would have been dialing in their most hopeful. Essentially, most people dial in their most hopeful inspiration in these moments because they want the show to go off. He would have been picking up on all of that and being able to freeform with all of that. Imagine if the sets he were on, there were people that loved him. It would have immediately put his G center in a direction that felt like his love was moving in the right direction. And then you take them out of that, and suddenly it's gone. And now uncertainty creeps back in, and not knowing creeps back in. And you're right, he's got, when the new rave children come, they'll have a couple of the channels that are in this octave circuit, that are in this new octave circuit. And people who have anything in this octave circuit will resonate to that. You guys both have a gate 55. You'll always resonate to that channel of community. So consciously in him, there was a channel of community, that 3740. It split off from the rest of him.
And I can only imagine being able to, like, I guess, consciously know that about, like, to see that in yourself, to know what that 3740 should be, and then to have it playing in the background frequency right now.
Yep.
To, like, have so much of what we come into contact with not, like, meet up to what true, authentic, unconditional love is, the whole family, that tribal, like, so much of what should be happening isn't, in a way. So
super tribal. So every time this man felt like the bargain was being laid down, grimy places like Hollywood and the power structures that are there would have broken that bargain. I heard the pain of the ultimate bargains being broken, the pain of the bargains that are life and death type.
And in the video?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can hear that too. Like, it was more of a I'm done.
Yep.
Because they do. I mean, when you, a lot of people who get involved in Hollywood, especially at young ages, they're victims themselves on some level. So it's a lot of work, and seeing his profile, and especially that 5, he's trying to live up to other people's expectations while not wanting to deal with anybody at the same time.
Right. And let's take just some real prime stuff. So at a young age, the sacral being gets cut off from his sacral. His family, his parents, people around him, they stop asking him questions so he can hear his responses and feel them. And they start telling him what to do. It's normal enough. Parents tell your kids what to do. And then all of a sudden he's cut off from that, yet he's on the cross of the laws. I'd like you to notice something really special about the law. And it's the law. It's a tribal law. This is the law of the land. This is the law of what we would want our highest and best to get to. Essentially, this is part of this. Our original founders framed into the Constitution. They tried the best they could to actually meet this, along with a few other things that they actually tried to do. They didn't know they were trying to do, but their human bodies were trying to do it. I want you to notice this thing that's in the laws. On the right-hand side, you see gate 60. That's in his earth. And then on the left-hand side, in his design sun, you see gate 3. Go to the bottom of his graph, between the sacral and the root center. That's the channel of mutation. If this channel is in the cross itself, not every cross has a channel in it. Most don't, have an actual definition inside the cross. The Phoenix does, a few do, but most don't. Cross of Planning does. Education does. But there's a lot that don't, more that don't. So what this is really saying is that the law that comes from gate 50, the tribe, that's supposed to be able to tell it as a story, gate 56, that's supposed to understand the transcendent of limitation is through acceptance. The law is supposed to understand its acceptance of limitation. Sorry, we can't make that law. We don't know enough. Our knowledge is too limited to make that law. For instance, that would be a limitation. We try and break through that limitation all the time. Everyone's got to do this thing and conform to this or whatever, and mandate this, mandate that, without knowing. That's against the law. That's literally against human law. And then gate 50, the tribal lawgiver, the cauldron, the deep of cauldron of tribal law and values that comes out of gate 50 off of the spleen center. And that causes another definition, but this one is unconscious. So the definition that is all about trying to preserve the life that you create on the other side. So on this side, you're preserving the life, and all tribal, supportive, sensitive laws speak to the preservation of the tribe and its life and its children, period. The laws speak to the preservation of the children at a fundamental level. And then if you go right across to the other side, he doesn't have the whole channel, but he's got gate 6 there. Conflict.
And that's where his Saturn is. So I've heard that you take Venus, which is your values, and then you've got Jupiter, which holds your law, your inside for you. And then if you're not following your values and your law, then Saturn comes around and busts your chops, basically.
Yeah. Saturn,
so you got emotional impact.
Saturn is always described as the gate where you sort of leave it alone. If you don't, it'll judge you. If you live out not you, you will be judged harshly.
I see Saturn as the father figure. You know, it's like there to keep you in line, and if you're not in line, it does punish you.
Right. So we're all saying the same thing. God, I love the old wisdom. They knew things. They know things. So anyways, that gate 6 is about intimacy and its openness to it or not. Some of what he was pouring out had everything to do with his openness or not to intimacy in his life. But back to the laws. The law is generated business. It's got a definition in it. That is mutation to the sacral. It says, I take a limitation, and then unconsciously in him is, and then I wait until it can be put into order. So Robin Williams' beautiful love and direction and his not knowing of his certainty and his too many things that went through his head, which was sometimes beautiful inspiration, and this not knowing what to say, but always knowing what to say at the right time, all of that and that anxiety that would have come up in him would have been this feeling of being stuck, always waiting on the pulse with an unconscious gate 3 that's designed to put things into order generatively. It generates the order. Think about what generating is. It's a response. So in the pulse, I got it, and the energy comes out and the ordering takes place, and whatever the chaos was, the generative motor starts to pull it in and put it into order, and literally, and it's intoxicating in its own way, and it really can't be stopped. It's not supposed to be. No one would want to stop it. Anyone witnessing that would be like, oh, this is good, unless he was putting the wrong thing in order, Jen. You know, because with all this openness, he studied open head, open ajna people. Guess what they do? They go into this, they get into that. They have bookcases filled with their books. They've got this idea, and then they chase down that. They can be very learned people. His diction was perfect. His ability to take on many voices was very good. His command of his ability to articulate was stunning. That's what you'd expect from an open throat maturing over time. You know what I mean? Maturing over time.
That's right.
You can take on any voice. I'm stuck with one voice, dude. You can, if you just heard, Jennifer, if you only saw a few pages of typing of 200 people, you'd be able to pick out which one was me.
Oh, absolutely. Me too.
Right. And you too, because we've got all that definite, and you too, actually, most likely, Nikki, you've got a defined ajna, but open head, open ajna. So he would have been looking into things. Lots of curiosity is in that gate 56. It's in the channel of curiosity, which is not there. He might have been curious about the wrong things. All I know is this mutative pulse of 60 and 3, this is something that you really can't do anything with it. It has its own melancholy. It has its own timing. And with an unconscious channel of preservation, what he cared about was the most important thing to him. What he cared about just would come out of his unconscious because it's got a vital sacral definition to that spleen, providing that sacral energy, not only to the mutative process, which he incredibly was, he mutated himself all the time for each role.
Yes, that he did do.
That's the channel of mutation. It brings new.
I was just thinking about that. Like, he did comedy. So he, what was it, on stage comedy for a while. Mork and Mindy. He's done kid shows. He's done dramas. He's done different voices. I mean, he's kind of versatile with what he's done through his acting career.
That's what you can expect from an open throat who's got one of its sun earth gates, one of its incarnation cross gates as one of the throat gates. 56 is his sun. So is the personality sun. So anyways, you take all this stuff together. What he cares deeply about, preservation, is about caring and nurturing the sustained energy to to preserve what you care about. And then to care deeply in the first place. And now he's emotional. So caring deeply is something he had, whatever it was. So when what he cared for deeply got smashed, he got smashed along with it. Don't forget about that second line personality. Just like in me, Jennifer, I need to be educated from the very beginning. I'm a 2-4. If I don't get educated from the very beginning, I don't know. So there was lots of times where suddenly he didn't know. He's just a little natural. He's not sure about what's that, what? And he would have had no foundation. By definition, the second line doesn't make the foundation. You do.
Yeah, first lines too.
Yeah, and then the second line's broadcast that foundation. It's a beautiful binary. But at the end of the day, he couldn't do that. That mutative pulse, just the lights got dimmed on it. The law got broken. The law of humanity was broken for him. Somebody broke the deal, or a group of people did. Whatever the case, possibly a child, possibly a love as well, possibly a love in his life. Because imagine, I don't know, but it could have been love in his life. Imagine he's got all this direction. He's got his natural love. This person is going to become conditioned by the woman, I would assume, that he's around. And if he loved her, then that's it. The second lines don't know how to not love. I
don't remember seeing. I did. I spent about maybe even an hour or two, but I was investigating, if I could find anything, which, I haven't, outside of the typical Hollywood pose that, they are, most of the people, they sign on to get famous to turn a blind eye to certain things. And he did do a lot of Disney movies, and stuff's already coming out about Disney and what goes on that. So on a level, especially because he does have a defined solar plexus and that emotional, I'm pretty sure a lot of the stuff that he did witness, that he had to keep his mouth closed, he had a hard time turning a blind eye after a while.
It's against the law, Jen.
That's that too. I was just gonna say, followed by, what he's designed to do. Yes, because I mean that the video that he did, and we'll play it again towards the end. It's like he is fed up with something to the point that he is angry. That's a lot of emotion that he's been holding back for a very long time. And it's surpassed coming out in tears, which I'm pretty sure that it has, just knowing the emotional wave. Now that emotion is fueled by the anger that he has coming out of him. Because his whole video is more emotional. It's got emotion behind it.
It's sad. I'm looking at his happy face. I remember him throughout my whole life, So I have my own melancholy about it all. It's amazing. It's beautiful. He was beautiful, and what I saw was an act of human beauty. Even though at the end it ended his life. This emotional definition in him would have come to certain clarity over time. He's got a gate 21, so he had to control certain surroundings.
Yes.
who knows what he couldn't control that drove this. Nothing stops a generator from getting busted out angry. We're not only frustrated, we'll fly into rage in that frustration over enough time. And
yes, and I could see that because he was probably frustrated because he couldn't do what
there were certain things he couldn't do.
Exactly.
Yep. And so if the law is about mutation, and it is, if the law is about our tribal version of becoming mutative and then putting that into an order, meaning bringing something new and putting that into a new structure, a new order inside humanity, inside the tribe, and being able to run with that in a vocal way that is stimulating, being able to stay with the articulative flow of being able to speak the law, and recognizing that the law comes from a story, not from a logical thought pattern. The law first is born of the past. That's what 856 is telling us. Knowing all of this, that as a 2-5 profile, that fine hermit that only wanted harmony, that very often didn't feel like hearing what the other had to say, that, also was a bit democratic in all of his way, go along to get along, that he couldn't do that after a certain amount of time. And I put all that together and I get someone who he cared so deeply about probably 1,000 things by the time that video was made. There were 1,000 strikes against whatever he was saying. That's it. Last straw. You're out. Because it wasn't him. He wasn't killing himself. He was killing a process. There was a process going on he couldn't bear. It wasn't my life needs to end because I can't bear me. That's not this man. That's the thing. Sometimes the suicide can be very much, I can't bear me. I'm going to end it.
Yep.
That was not Robin. I hope anyone who sees this, who knows Robin Williams, can maybe speak to some of that. Because he was putting an end to, or an end was being put to the situation around him, the world around him, the chaos around him, that which he thought he probably had some kind of tribal order to, that the law was working at one point in time, but the law degraded and got broken too much. And when you break that and that second line can no longer answer the call, it'll give itself another call. He was called into this video. He was called into doing the thing that happened at the end, some way, shape, or form. So he either went down kicking or he took his own life, one of the two. That would be my guess.
Yeah, I didn't quite find anything like, what was he doing prior to everything going on? Because, that does play a huge part.
Yeah. I wonder if he was married. I should have looked that up beforehand. He's got a lot of stuff that's also looking to the future that would have been easily confused. He's got a right-facing life. I mean, a right-facing personality and arrows. Both the arrows on the top right, they point to the right, the open, the receptive, to take it all in. That's like, this is the new way. This would be his personality that could literally regurgitate almost anything because anyone around would have been able to pull it out. And so this is a person who, he's not there to be focused and strategic about stuff. And he was in a world that asked him to make strategic decisions. Think about that. So I'm not sure what strategic decisions he couldn't make, but I just look at a few things in here, and I it doesn't take long to say the emotional embrace of that channel of community, 4037, with other gates coming off of that emotional solar plex that would have been expressing themselves. The grace to listen, gate 22, was always coming out in him. The grace to be able to know what's worth hearing in a way, to see if they even felt like listening. His ability to know where friction need to come out, where to be intimate, where not to be intimate, the confusion over what intimacy was, but still this deep abiding need for community, to support the community, to make the bonds that drive the marriage bargain, that keep it going, that make kids, that support children, that has a spot at the table for people to eat. So I can only imagine on his set if he wasn't grumpy, because sometimes he can be very grumpy. Sometimes Robin Williams was, and if he didn't show it, it's because his little second line was just being a hermit and putting a barrier up around himself. So he's emotional with a barrier. Period. He's emotional with a barrier. And if I look at all this way, I can envision people breaking through his barrier, him not liking it, there's too much, him having a hard time changing communities, his inability to keep the same thing. And as we know in the coming of this 2027 mutation, as we know, rave children, they won't be able to break their bonds once they get together. We won't be able to pull them apart. When we see the new rave children, which he is deeply sensitive to this new way, upon us showing up soon enough. You put 3, 4, and 5 rave children together. As soon as that happens, you're not going to easily be able to pull them apart. It's time to go home now, honey. No, they're all going to go together. And I can't wait to see that unfold. But that's the assumption. So he was on a path where his values told him what I care about shouldn't be pulled apart. And in his life, it got pulled apart too many times, making it so he couldn't put things back into order again. Nikki, I'm saying he couldn't put things into order, and his deep caring gave him an emotional awareness that something was so dark, and all of his openness that didn't know about his love and direction, didn't know what to think, didn't know what to be certain of, all of that, and the split definition that couldn't find its spirit. What do we do with all of that? What do you think what was this man feeling at the moment the lights were being put out, or leading up to it? I wonder. That's too deep a question. Sorry.
Are you asking me that question?
Well,
it's not deep. It's not too deep for me. I mean, my personal take would be that, he was here to really lead the way with his nodes, with grace through the family. And, he brought in an understanding of what oppression, that type of energy. He knew what that already was.
Yeah. And
he also knew, the opposite, because his north and south node in his personality are, that 40-37 channel. So once he had come to a certain age and a certain level of awareness, and as Neptune started to unveil his intuitive gifts, and as he transited, specifically the cross of the sleeping phoenix comes to my mind, because it literally lights up every aspect through the octave channel that he does not have. And then throughout the years, as Pluto went through gate 11 and gate 10, and did its magic and mutations, and I think gate 61, he has the opposite channels. So all this stuff was probably coming to him.
Dude, that's an amazing observation. I totally missed that. You're right. The Phoenix is 55, 59, so 55 on the solar plex, 59 on the coming off of the sacral, 59 going,
right here.
And 34, 20, 34 going up to the throat to 20.
Yeah.
And with Jupiter being, his design being in gate 25, that's the only thing in gate 25. And then gate 7. What's that?
Let's read that one real quick.
Which one? Gate 7?
25.
25.
25-2. The existentialist. Devotion and dedication in the now that brings right action and the spirit of the self. That was that was him all day long. As soon as he was on a set to clear it up. No doubt.
So to think of maybe what a shock certain things would be when he really came to a sense of just the amount of power that's really available that, we have in this form, in this time and space.
Yeah.
And just could really kind of sense and feel it all. And with Pluto being his truth, gate 7 is a key in the next cycle for something. My daughter's design North Node is in gate 7, so it catches me for some reason. So just to think and that's the gate of
leadership.
Yeah. I think my daughter's
your role in
general or something like that.
Yes, well, it defines your role in interaction with the other. So his gate 7 was always knowing how to interact with the other. In his younger years, in his truth, gate 7.6 would have been gate 7.3. So he was always going to bump into everything, and they would have asked him to lead. And then as he became the role model, the leadership around him would have been, intolerable.
Yes, and with that his profile type being the 2-5, with the 5, he's probably gotten really good at reading other people's projections, so he knows how to act accordingly.
Yeah, my guess is he got out of Dodge as soon as he could, quickly, after each set, after things in between.
It was probably a lot to keep up with.
Yeah.
Because he was in his acting career was pretty long. I can't remember when Mork and Mindy came out.
It was in the 80s.
Yeah, I thought early 80s, or I thought maybe late 70s.
It could have been late 70s. I was either going into high school or in high school at the time.
So to think when he had activations and he had the full channel, the 1648, because the 16 it's a dormant gate, correct? It's not active until it's active.
Right.
So to be in Hollywood and to be on, in all those big scenes, to be exposed and walking through literally the well of what most of us do not know. And then to have that understanding and the pressure to speak on it. And, who knows what he could or could not have spoke on.
The attraction of the law to what would have been the Phoenix inside of his life cycle would have been magnetic, would have been absolutely magnetic. So I wanted to read his one of the things. So his gate 56 is in an open center. So I was going to read his gate 60 because it was really something that stood out. Gate 60 is in his definition. So this was working in him all the time. And this was his grounding. This was what was being driven into him. Gate 60, limitation, this gate that understands about acceptance. And that acceptance is the first step to surrender and to transcendence. Decisiveness is what it's called. There's no subheading, so it's not a life process. He was born with this decisiveness, this understanding of the nature of limitation and this ability to accept its restraints when necessary, thus being able to take advantage of opportunities as they arise. So it would have felt like a restraint, but he would just overcome it. It's in bold, it's energy which can adapt to restraint. But in its second expression, which if you notice, that's what's highlighted here. See that down-facing arrow next to a 60 line 2?
Yes.
Remember, love your detriments. So he was living this out from the beginning, very often being sad because he didn't always have the energy which can adapt to restraint. He didn't. That was the first expression, second expression of this binary, this duality that he lives out. Energy, which can adapt. Let me get this right. Where are we? Here we are. Yeah, an energy and restraint that becomes habitual. Energy for adaptation that can get stuck without any eventual mutation, without any eventual newness, without transcendence. An energy that only feels the restraint, keeps feeling stuck, feels like it's always stuck. Imagine what that did to the not self of this man. Yet he transcended limitation over and over again.
Yeah.
Over again. So even though the being in his own psyche had this energy for adaptation that can get stuck, it doesn't say does, it says that can get stuck without eventual mutation. He thought that he was stuck with that. His not self mind would have kept thinking, I'm stuck this way. Not that, hey, it's this way a lot, but when it's not, boy, is it great. That could have been his life. We could have taught him that at age 5. He would have got that. He would have understood detriment doesn't mean detriment. It just means expression. It's an aspect of his whole. So the stimulating way his 56 would have come in on him as a natural being called, he would have been called right out of his limitation over and over again. This is a perfect binary to be in a second line position, that which can take the call. So in the end, that video demonstrates to me that somebody really leaned on him, or he leaned on himself so much that the bargain changed and it was time for him to exit. And his emotional depths of despair went down so far that he
Which it can.
Yep. One of the gates that would bridge his split. So he's got a sacral, he's got a split definition, right? So he's got a sacral, a spleen, and a root center on the left. And then he's got all 4 motors defined. Look at that.
Yep.
And then he's got the solar plex and the ego on the right. And they're split from each other. One gate that bridges it is gate 59, which would have brought the right intimacy into his life or not. So that's more of a personal thing. Gate 59 off of the root center, if he had a gate 55, that would have connected it his whole life.
39?
Yep. 39 would have, but no 55. We seek what we are not. And when you have a split definition, you try to be that gate on the other side. It's a psychic phenomena that robs us of our spirit. It's the gate of spirit. He was constantly trying to provoke in the other the spirit that would bring him the right intimacy that he could then nurture and care for and bring a new mutative way to. He was constantly seeking the spirit that would alleviate this gate 60 line 2, an energy that can get stuck without any eventual mutation, just stuck. So anyone could have played on that. Hey, Robin, we'll give you the spirit. Come be a Hollywood actor. Come be a Mouseketeer. Come be Mork and Mindy. We'll fill your spirit, Robin. There's intimacy here, Robin. We'll fill your spirit with the intimacy you seek. That generated sacral intimacy that you would love to just have and hold and care for and feel called into. And that you would love to have come break down your little barrier so that they can break through and achieve union with you. He sought that person that would break down his barrier to achieve union with him. All second lines do that. And if you got a hanging gate 6, you do it even more. You know, if you have a second line personality with a hanging gate 6, you do it more. Now, if you do it, you got that in a defined center, it becomes a big part of your life. I mean, that becomes a way. That's who he's not. He could have sat there and waited by the river. The love would have just come down, floated down the river for him.
I think he was married 3 times, and he was married when he committed suicide.
Yeah, people would have tricked him, and he would have tricked himself. I'm not saying it's intentional. I'm not saying any of his wives were good or bad. I don't know them. I'm just saying they would have easily tricked each other. Robin Williams, with all this beautiful energy, bringing that law, having this emotional definition, suddenly 2 beings get together and they don't realize that, hey, he's part hermit. You can't make him do stuff. He's inside of his incarnation cross is an individual definition. That means he's moody, he's melancholic. What he does comes out in a pulse. And at the same time, he's not always in the mood. And sometimes he's not listening. And you're going to have to love that about this man. You know, I have plenty of that in me. I've yet to meet a wife that was willing to hang around. So
I was just noticing he has his Mercury is in gate 4, line 4, which is the gate of youthful folly.
Yep, youthful folly. This ability of the youthful folly to come up with any formula to fix the day. Something's wrong. I got a formula for you. What's that line 4 say?
The liar. Role playing as an art form. The actor. Fantasy protects and nurtures a sense of purpose and reason, no matter how misguided. The potential to find or illustrate the formulas through fantasy.
Speak louder.
Time always brings humiliation. The potential danger to see the fantasy as an act. And just his, design is gate 27.
that was what he was communicating. He certainly communicated that Mercury helps you communicate stuff. Dude, he fit his design.
Yeah.
His not self mind, 3D upbringing tortured him. Had someone been able to get to him, he would have realized something completely different.
He nurtured the lie for too long. You know, he used his gifts in ways that there was so much, in my opinion, there was so much intensity behind that apology, the anger. 2014 was a big year in my life. I'm across the sleeping phoenix, so I can only imagine.
I wonder what was happening astrologically in the air around that time too.
Ooh, that would have been good to look up too. Yeah. Look up the date. We should look up the dates too and do the weather report when these news things come out, when we do these.
I think it's helpful if we can start putting language on, the ways that these things may feel as they run through. I mean, because we all have the same DNA. It's just what's activated, what's highlighted in each of us is, special and different to the person. And that's what makes all of this really great, in my opinion, is that we can really see how each of us are meant to play a different part. And, as we understand how things kind of work through each of us, and it can be life-saving.
Yeah. Yeah. He couldn't communicate what he cared for, and he played a liar. That's what an acting role is. You're backing something outside of what you are.
Yeah.
Wow, that's actually really interesting.
He had a lot of beautiful sayings and quotes throughout, time that were just deep and very inspirational, so from what I've picked up, and I used a lot of his quotes to help me get through sometimes, and he all kind of seems to make sense when you live with that.
Think about this for a second, Nikki. That's the law.
Mm-hmm.
Inspire us with your stuff that it came out of your past. Out of the past comes the stuff you tell the story about or tell the quote about. No one has a quote without some experience in the past driving the quote. Quotes come out of your past. They may look to the future, but they don't come from the future. They come out of our past. And that's part of the law. Gate 56 comes out of the past.
That is what was happening in the sky.
Egads.
Oh, wow.
At the time of his... Well, I did it at midnight.
Good enough.
Well, yeah. Look at he would have had the 48, and then he had the other side of the 7. So the 7 and the 31.
Yeah.
And then he would be able to identify patterns through the 44.
Yeah.
The gate of correction. Wow.
Look at all that. And he still had the Sphinx. So direction was in the sky at the time. The changing cross actually.
He would have just had an open head. All the centers would have been filled in too.
Right.
He would have just had funneling, amounts of data to piece through.
Yep. Funneling that certainty. So yeah. So his identity was there. This is a lot going on. Technically, it fills in so much of the rest of what he was. It didn't bridge it bridged one of his gates, but it didn't bridge his split. His split was not bridged by this transit. The transit are only the black lines, Nikki. The red lines are what happened 90 days earlier.
Okay.
88 degrees of the sun earlier, meaning it had already gone by. 88 degrees of the sun ago.
So he would have already had that transit then?
Well,
or nothing bridged his split?
Well, 88 degrees of the sun earlier, what's in red would have been in black.
So yes, at one point in time, but 88 days before.
It ran through. But at the time,
I'm trying to see if it was anything that would have bridged his split before, and then this day came up,
No, he only had 2 bridging gates. He had gate 55 and gate 59, and none of them are present on this body graph.
And then he's also the channel.
It would have brought shock.
The bottom one.
Yes. Because he had 25, right?
Yep, he had 25.
Yep. That did happen.
Yeah.
Yep, it would have brought shock. I can't see it that well. What is
Yeah, neither can
50 gate 51 is in what line?
Gate 51 is in 2.
God, that resonates with his profile. Go back to his chart. Let's see where gate 25 is.
I. Chiron was in gate 22.
It's in gate 2. All in resonance to his personality. Feeling stuck and limited, needing to tell a story that is now turned on because he has a defined throat.
The wounded healer hit his north node, hit that gate. Chiron. That Chiron was on that chart, correct?
Yeah.
At one point in time, maybe not. Maybe I noticed something separate.
It would have been 63.
Yeah. Well, that would have given him a definition. Well, it would have given him a definition in his head center.
I had just noticed the unconscious.
But anyway, so there's a lot there.
Yeah.
All resonates. Suddenly, the channel of shock is available. The warrior and the warrior ego, unable to control his surroundings, seeing that the deal is broken, doesn't know what to care for anymore, feeling absolutely stuck in the chaos of unconsciously not being able to put the order together. He finally left.
It was after his second Saturn return, right? Because he was in his 60s.
It was after his Chiron return, so it was just, which, but still, this natal chart gives us most of the story. But yeah, it would have been after lots of returns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just thinking of that awareness coming to the surface, you know, like for me, I have a deeply self-reflective design, in a sense, like a sense to be able to gain the self-awareness. And sometimes it wants to take me out because I can be, you know, my biggest enemy when it comes to understanding things and then settling with what you know. How do you deal with that? How do you cope with that? And so
that's how you deal with it. You're not the not self of you, the scared, stuck in the future, trying to think it knows what's true for itself. Not self takes care of that for you, and the transit field delivers you a gate 51, and he leaps into the void of death. He leaps right into the void of death. That would have been there for a little while because it was in one of the outer planets. So this had been brewing for months prior to this.
Yeah.
For at least a couple months. If you go back to the other slide real quick, let's see. Gate 51 was, it was in a second line. Don't have to go back. Never mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was in Saturn. That means Saturn was, Saturn takes a while. So a couple months each gate. Or a month or two. And so this was brewing. Actually, since it moves up, then chances are it would have been just a few weeks in that gate before it made it to the second line. So he was struck with something a few weeks. So there's an investigation for you, Jen. Look back 30 days and what was going on there up to about 1 to 2 weeks prior. Because when it moved into gate 2 in that resonance, the judge came and the judge said, "It is my judgment. You jump, you leap." He left. That warrior spirit left. I heard a warrior spirit that told me, that expressed its rage, that was ready to go to battle. Had there been a way out, this man would have stood the line, you know, in a real live situation like that. That's what I saw. Yet he went out. Out he went. So,
was there anything big that had happened like right after that? Like, I guess I'm just thinking like if he caught wind of something that was going to happen to kind of get us all collectively emotionally amped up.
I don't know, but there's a huge investigation that really could reveal plenty of things worth revealing if we could see the month before and the month after Robin Williams' death. Because the beautiful thing about human design is these are our mechanics. He's helpless to this stuff. He wouldn't have known any of this stuff, or not intimately. So for him, you know, when the warrior spirit showed up, it was only there for a little while. So what happened just before it showed up, as it was showing up, and like you said, he might have seen in the future was going to be happening. What was it? It's
Mm-hmm.
in one look, a few weeks before and a few weeks after, a month before and a month after his death. Chances are you could tic-tac-toe some nefarious stuff together that you might want to know about. Because Robin Williams didn't end his life simply because he was heartbroken in a moment, because he'd been there before. He's been there before.
A lot of that I'm researching right now, and of course, it's all like CNN or Vanity Fair.
Yeah, no,
Say for it with a grain of salt, but they're pushing a similar headline. They're saying that he had a rare case of dementia. But I'm wondering, what I want to research now is how long had they been saying that, because they may be playing off his actions because of that. But he was definitely working on a movie, and I'm going to dive more into that because I
listen, lots of pathologists I know and trust has in fact brain slice for an MRI scan where they can put in a dye and look for the markers that show for dementia, and then he can publish, or she can publish that in some place. I don't believe he had dementia before that. That's a story.
Yeah.
Sounds like a story to me.
Yeah. I wouldn't believe it either.
No,
he was meant to be a role model, and as a leader in the sense of Pluto, when we look at our truth, there's no way with his spirit and just what he brought that, like, I mean, he was in a position.
it was no simple thing.
Yeah.
Something very important got taken from him. That's why I would love to see what happened before and after.
I'll start researching it and I'll keep you posted.
Yep. So on that, I can't think of much more to say to Robin Williams, except I wish he was my friend. We would have been great friends. Actually, I have a lot of electromagnetics with him. Yep. So, oh well. What else to say about Robin? I sort of miss him. He did such a good role on everything. He taught me so much in Free Will Hunting. Wasn't that the name of the movie?
Good Will Hunting?
Yeah. I learned so much from all of those characters. Including the douchebag. Exactly what does a douchebag look like? Well, it looks like that guy, that professor guy who was such a dick.
He did a movie called What Dreams May Come. And I don't know if you guys have heard of that. It was a movie about afterlife, a couple and somebody, killing themselves, and them basically, because her husband he was the husband who passed away. There's lots of grief. And so I was almost shocked, like, when I realized he played in this movie, to just know how many different things he may have known to see him get to, on a spiritual level, to get to that place.
The thing inside of him, to me, that brought the most grief. So there was grief in that man. Grief killed this man. We can at least see that. Extreme grief and not knowing what to do, searching for love and direction, and being uncertain about what to say or do about it is enough, along with those two splits he had, trying to fill the intimacy. Someone took an important intimacy away from him, and he was stricken with grief. That's sort of my end analysis. Someone or something, an entity or a person, both most likely, took something so important away from him that it crushed his spirit. He had no way out. His not self murdered his true self. That's
a great
analysis.
It'd be something to study for sure, because you can definitely see that's his filler, right?
Yep. Yep. So
that was great.
I'm Robin.
Great show. Before we wrap it up, I was looking in my Incarnation cross book and other famous crosses that are on the Cross of Laws. Charlie Chaplin, Benjamin Franklin, Ernest Hemingway, Dolly Parton, Edgar Allan Poe, Muhammad Ali, and Weird Al Yankovic. That's a
dude. He was in good company.
Oh.
So there was also Kamala Harris, but I don't really, We know she's not following their laws. She's not doing her job.
She's on the cross
Like
of
she
the
should
laws.
be.
Kamala
She's
Harris
in
is
the-
on the cross of the laws.
Yes.
That's actually kind of scary if you think
It's-
about it. Somebody who might have information about the future being in that position.
Yeah, in a position to pervert what the natural law is.
That's actually kind of terrifying.
It's wicked terrifying.
It is terrifying. But yeah, I thought that was kind of cool to pull out what other ones that are on that law. So yeah. Thank you everybody who tuned in tonight. Thank you, Nikki, for joining us.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Want me to announce Sunday?
Yes, go ahead and announce Sunday.
So on Sunday, we're going to be just talking about the gate. And I think I did some of this with you, Nikki. So a plug for teaching. You know, I'm a teacher. Get your butt in here so you can finally know what the hell. It's not that expensive, but so we're going to go over the gate. We all get confused about what to do with the gates, right? It's like, and then we get to the gate and we start reading the line of the gate, and it's hard to. I'm going to help bring it into focus. How to read a gate. It starts way up high where I start at the type and I start showing you how to stack the relevant keynotes up, the knowing to say, oh, this is the context for how to read a gate. We're going to learn how to read gates on Sunday.
Perfect.
Yeah, we're going to get through one or two at most, you know, but maybe we'll get through only a couple, but you'll have the skill to go and read your own gates and the gate of your husband in case you want to know what the heck it's doing, or your family or your friends and yourself. It's going to be wonderful. I'm excited about it.
Wonderful. Yes, we'll get that posted. So that's going to be very informative because I'm now starting to look into the different gates and stuff like that.
I have a disclaimer. No holding people's gates against them.
That's right.
In the world, they can't hold someone's design against them. It's not fair.
No, you can't. I mean, at the end of the day, if they are acting in accordance to their design,
yep,
that's how they are designed to be. In universal law, we do live in, there's so much that's going on. Everybody's playing a part in this grand awakening. So that is something to keep in mind, guys. Doesn't mean that you have to, well, even if you don't like it or it's not in alignment with you, doesn't mean that you got to make sure that it is in alignment with you. It's okay.
Right. Yeah.
So,
thank you, Jennifer. It's true.
Yep. The other person can always move.
Yep.
So talk to many, many star seeds and light workers out there. They, things do change, but that's okay. It doesn't mean anything's wrong with the other person. So, but regardless, that could be a separate show. For those of you who would like more information on discovering your design, who are you at the core, or Dan is now offering relationship readings as well. You can find the links down below. Make sure you book your session with him or a couple session. It doesn't really have to be romantic. You can do business partners, friends, kids, all those things. Make sure you book a session. Dan would love to help you dissect that information. Don't forget to join our Vortex. That's our monthly program to help you through the deconditioning process. And we haven't quite put up the page just yet for teaching, but we are enrolling people who want to be mentored and learn how to become a human design reader themselves and dive deeper into all that information. So if that's something that's interesting to you and you want to get more information, just go to our website or send us a DM. We'll be able to get all that to you and get you set up. So
Human Design Advantage. Bam.
Yes. Thank you, everybody who tuned in. Happy full moon. Make sure that you stay grounded.
10:18, right? 9:18 for you, 10:18 for us.
10:08, right?
Huh?
08. 08.
Oh, 08. Ooh.
10:08.
Yeah.
Well, we're already feeling the energy. So
Yep.
it's just before we pop off with that, this just be aware that there's awakenings. A lot of people are going through their stuff. Full moons are really good for letting and releasing and shedding things. A bunch of people I've been talking to have been kind of going through something similar. just make sure you stay heart-centered, do a meditation, get grounded, and just balance yourself. Always take it back to yourself, because we are going through a massive transition, and connecting back to you is going to be the best thing that you can do in these times. So with that, much love, everybody. We hope you have a wonderful evening, and we will see you on Sunday.
Rock and roll.
Bye.
Peace out.